Well, hello and welcome to Evosys presentation today, our webinar in Look Before You SAP. We're going to provide today some insights for you on what we found when organizations have been considering moving from SAP ECC because of the sunset announcement through SAP, and what the reasons are behind some of what our clients have decided to do. I hope you enjoy it. Please ask any questions that you want, and yeah, I'll present it for you. If I may, I'll switch the camera off. So just a little bit of background. Why should you be listening to us today? Well, Evosys Global has quite a large swathe of clients that have gone from SAP through to a full implementation of Oracle Cloud products. We also have a lot of clients who have gone with what we call a surround solution. So they've looked at key best-in-class solutions. Why am I presenting? Well, I'm a 25-year veteran of SAP. I've both worked for SAP as a global account manager. I've run a division for SAP. I've also run a partner for SAP, a cloud partner for 9 years as the CEO. So hopefully that gives you some idea of the credentials that we have. And just a little bit about the agenda that we're going to go through. I'm going to use publicly available information, so it's in the public domain. The URLs are available to you, so you can look at them, you can evaluate them and read the reports that they've been taken from. We're going to look a little bit about why customers are moving. What is it that's motivating them to make what is quite a large decision to move away from an SAP environment to a full Oracle Cloud SaaS environment. We're then going to touch on a couple of success stories, a public sector organization and a commercial organization, just to cover the piece, and then a little bit about how Evosys could help you in your evaluation of Oracle Cloud against your potential move to SAP S/4HANA. It's very difficult to start today's presentation without talking about the current challenges that businesses have because of COVID. This is from McKinsey, a recent McKinsey report, where they've talked about, strangely, they seem to think that COVID has given the businesses the same challenges as the financial crash in 2008. And what they've realized is that they've provided the 5 R's that you can see on the left-hand side of how businesses can get through the pandemic. And then you see on the right how organizations in the upper quartile have benefited from what is probably a generational opportunity. You know, I can't think of a time in my lifetime where we've had, 10, 12 months of disruption. But in doing that and having that disruption, it enables businesses to rethink what they do, act upon what they do, and actually benefit from doing that action. And you can see on the right-hand side what some of the upper quartile businesses have done and how they've benefited. The most interesting thing for me is that how quickly organizations have changed. And I'm sure you'll see it in your organization, how quickly you went from all your people, or the predominance of your people, being in offices to suddenly being home workers. It's strange. The public think that's relatively straightforward. You just take your PC and you go home. Basically, it isn't. Most businesses have got security issues. They've got connectivity issues. Certainly, I know somebody who works for Vodafone, and the challenges they had from the working day amount of digital traffic that was predominantly around cities and towns, moving into the country, into smaller villages, was a massive challenge for them. We've seen this growth throughout businesses that have decided to take it as an opportunity, even down to those organizations we don't often see as moving very, very quickly. McKinsey used an example of a bank doing a physical change, a technology change, functional change for their customers in 8 weeks, which would generally take 3 to 5 years to get sign-off and approval. 32 times the speed has really enabled those organizations to benefit. But what's the underlying reason for that? Well, principally, it's that technology platform that they've got that has enabled them to make those changes. It's enabled them to turn what has been an enormous challenge for us all into some sort of competitive edge, some sort of competitive advantage. But as you'll be able to see in the report, fundamentally what they had was they had IT as a service rather than something that they had to physically support in their business. And they were using that to their advantage to actually execute new technologies very, very quickly at the speed of COVID, is the way that was described. And I think that's very true. So if we look a little bit about why customers are moving away from SAP, and we are seeing an acceleration of that. We've seen that through COVID. It started relatively slowly a couple of years ago, and it's accelerated dramatically as organizations see the 2027 sunset date appearing on the horizon. We are now very nearly in 2021. Most SAP ECC customers took between 1.5 and 5 years to implement. If it takes that time again, then you and they will be considering change in the next 12 to 18 months. These are some of the concerns that we see, and we see there's 2 sets of concerns. The first one is with the current platform, the current implementation of ECC or R3 or Business Suite, whatever your iteration is called, that is being sunsetted. SAP have moved the date once. I doubt very much that their new CEO, who was put in place, Klein, was put in place in May this year, became sole CEO, is actually going to change that again. What we hear from our customers are some of these elements. So the availability of experienced people on ECC. There was a recent report came out last week from the UKI SAP user group chairman Paul Cooper, saying that there's concern across his members that their people are becoming difficult to replace as they retire and they move on. Increasing cost of ownership because of that center of excellence principle, the capability of having to support things like Basis and the applications that you have in an ever-changing environment. The build-up of significant technical debt, that's really around all those developments that you had to do to get ECC to fit your processes. We often find that, and we found in our customer base, that organizations have had a number of different partners who've done that. Some who've been superb in the way that they document, others who've been less so. But the movement of that makes things quite challenging. It means that your processes probably can't move as effectively as they once could. You can't be as fleet of foot. And access to innovation. They talk about, clients talk about robotic process automation, machine learning, AI, IoT, chatbots, all these things to make you more efficient, more competitive, that you can see your competitors doing, but that you're challenged with, and that, how many organizations, partner organizations, are actually going to bring that innovation to bear on ECC when they know that it's got a sunset date. The other side of the coin is, where do you go? What do you consider? So yes, our clients chose to go with Oracle Cloud Solutions, and we'll talk about that in later on. But they highlighted their concerns around S/4HANA, and these came through very, very strongly. They're concerned about the availability of experienced people. Whilst consultancies and SAP themselves are quoting people who've been through training and education, there are still very few people who've got that hands-on experience of actually implementing S/4HANA, because whilst there are 15,100 S/4HANA clients now, There are 8,100 implemented as per SAP's Q3 results. But it seems that a lot of those are more pilot sites than anything else. So, you know, if you're thinking of doing it, then you really do want somebody who's been there, done it, and got the T-shirt. There are some concerns around the overall cost. I think that comes because S/4HANA is not a direct replacement for ECC. And therefore it's got core, so it's got finance and it's got other elements, but for things like HR, you need a third-party product, success factors for expenses you need to incur, for sophisticated procurement you need a Reba, and then you've got to knit all that together and support it. So those overall costs customers were looking at and we're worried about because they're saying, we just want to exploit technology. We don't want to necessarily have to run it. And then there's that question about re-implementation. Are you brownfield, bluefield, greenfield site? That's really going to denote which technology base that you can go for with S/4HANA, whether it's the cloud version, which is relatively limited in scope, or whether it's what SAP describe as on-prem, but they also run in private cloud. Speed of implementation. Organizations are concerned that they want to do this thing in weeks, maybe months, but definitely not years. And then the maturity of the product. There are lots and lots of roadmaps of where it's going, what the functionality should be, could be, maybe, but we don't. Our clients decided they didn't want to buy a roadmap; they wanted to buy something operational now. So I bring you to a quote. You could say, well, it's a so what quote, but it talks about integration isn't working yet. It's talking about data exchange between SAP products, and it talks about security. Now, this wouldn't matter if it wasn't from a guy called Hasso Plattner. And for those of you who have ECC, you'll know that Hasso Plattner is a founder of SAP. He's the brainchild of R3, which has now become ECC. He's the brainchild of HANA. And this was an interview he did in Germany, in German, for an e-zine called Handelsblatt on the 20th of May this year. And it is really concerning. Plattner is listened to. He's not a voice in the wilderness. He's still very, very active and passionate about things he doesn't, he likes and he follows, but also things he's not happy with. So that happened on the 20th of May. So, that's SAP telling the market the concerns it's got about itself. This is SAP's CEO in February. That's just before he became sole CEO. He was co-CEO with Jennifer Morgan, an American lady, until April this year. And this is in something that he did on LinkedIn. And I thought it was also very interesting. It says that integration has become a challenge for many customers because of the acquisition strategy that SAP have had, buying basically products which were, number one, number two, number three in their market at the time, that came on different technology stacks and had different data models. He talks about an integration strategy paper, which is a great read, by the way. And I've given you the URL here. It is just a strategy paper, and there is no discussion about harmonizing data models. What we found with other organizations in the market is to harmonize a data model across 2 or 3 products. In SAP's case, it's probably more like 7 to 10 products, is likely to take between 3 and 7 years. So we don't know when they started this harmonization, but it didn't seem to be top of mind for previous management. So this feels like it's not starting very quickly. The harmonization of a data model is key for you to just have the one version of the truth, to not hold data twice. But my supposition is this where business technology platform has come from? So if you look at business technology platform on SAP's site, it's freely available. It's in the public domain. It shows a helix type sort of figure 8 configuration of BTP. At the top side, it's great. It's the sex and sizzle that customers are really looking for. It's AI. It's business-driven analytics. It's all of those things. They are extra products. They're not. Again, they're not necessarily core. But on the bottom level, it talks about three fundamental things. It talks about database and data management, and how they need to do virtualization, governance, and orchestration. And it seems to suggest that's with third-party products. I think from what Plattner and Christian Klein have said, that this could well be for SAP products as well. In the center of it, it talks about their foundation platform services, and it talks about single sign-on, security, and identity management. I suspect that comes again from discussions that they have, that Plattner discussed, about some of the security issues or some of the products that they have are not up to the level that are demanded in the SAP infrastructure. And those are ongoing concerns, I'm sure, but they're trying to fix with this business technology platform. And then they have a whole integration suite. And whilst SAP say that most of their products, if not all of their products, run on their HANA database, they don't say that they integrate together. They do say that some of the standard processes will integrate. But if you want to do something slightly different, for instance, you've got all of your people on HR, you've got all of your projects on SAP, but what you want to do is you want to match skills, capabilities with certification dates, then that's probably not a standard process, and you're going to have to start configuring that yourself, looking at an ETL tool of some description, something that our customers decidedly didn't want to do. So yeah, there's some of the things that I think are an issue. If you look at the SAP stack, from a simplification point of view, depending upon which products you use, you can see that they've got between, I think S4HANA now is going down to, certainly the on-prem private cloud version is going down to probably 1 release a year. The cloud version isn't. S4HANA Cloud is 4 releases a year, quarterly releases. But then you can see all the other products have got different release strategies. And as I'm sure you see in ECC, when you've added extra third-party products, you've got a whole testing, validation process to go through every time there's a release. 30 upgrades or releases a year, which is the potential, could be a nightmare. This is the article from where Paul Cooper, chairman of the UK SAP user group, was interviewed last week, or the article was produced last week. You can see again the URL at the bottom, and what the SAP user group's talking about is that there's 2 pieces of challenge here. One is support of the current platform and basis. We can see through other analysis that support group is aging and retiring, and due to a number of factors, it's difficult to attract new blood into that, especially when you start to say, well, I want to move to S4HANA. I not only need Basis, ABAP, I need UI5 for Fiori, I need other skills, I need HTML skills, I need all of these different skills, which it's challenging to get in the same set of people. So that's likely to grow your base of support and therefore grow your cost of support of your infrastructure, no matter which way you do it. Whether you're in-house or out-house, you still have to pay for it. And the lack of skills Paul talks about here is likely to impact the speed that organizations potentially move to a new platform. He says S4HANA. I would if I was in his shoes. You are the UK SAP user group after all. If you look at some other analysis that's been done by Resulting IT, they are a client-side partner, 20, 25 years in the market, so they know their stuff. they did an analysis of the SAP ECC consultants. So there were about 600 or 700 consultants in this analysis. 10% of them, sorry, 54% are expecting a minimum of 10% rise once they gain S4HANA skills. Frighteningly, 18% are expecting more than 20% rise in either their day rate or their salary once they acquire S4HANA skills. And because there's such a lack of that skill base with ECC knowledge, with transformational knowledge, they are likely to be very attractive to other organizations. So my other question here, I suppose the underlying question is, how long will you keep them? This is a report done, I'm sure this is done by Dennis Howlett, who's a big fan of SAP, been around SAP for 30 years as an industry watcher. Unusual really to give these percentages. This was done at the start of the year in February. And you know, the takeaways for me was, if you're thinking of a tech swap, we have heard on the grapevine a significant number of projects which have been postponed if they're just a tech swap, because the challenge is actually building a very strong business case. And it's really interesting to see this in a magazine which is so SAP focused. This was a more recent article, end of July. So this is sort of mid-pandemic. So organizations have been challenged from a revenue point of view, profitability point of view. They've been looking at their projects. This is quite a broad statement, but you know, I do think the large consulting houses are using S4HANA as a transformation base. If they are, your project is bound to grow in timeline. You're unlikely to be able to do it in weeks. You know, you'd be pleased if you could do it in months, but the likelihood is that it is going to span a number of years if it's transformational. And then there's a consultant gap. And the challenge with that is, again, this came from Resulting IT. You know, they've been involved in many projects, hundreds of projects. So I think, you know, they're looking at calculating from the numbers of organizations like yourself that run ECC, of which we think there are between 40 and 44,000 worldwide, that, you know, migration to S4, 9 months, I think that's realistic. 15 consultants per project might be a little high. If it is 15, that's 100 million days of man days of effort, which there just isn't the capacity in the community. SAP's CEO for SAP France was on a business program a couple of weeks ago that said that they're light about 70,000 consultants. And I also think the comment at the bottom is interesting, that fewer than 8%, possibly 10% now, have completed an ECC to S4HANA migration. So, you know, the best way to do this is really, you know, call on someone's experience, and that looks like it's challenging to find. And that being the case, often you find they gravitate to the bigger, meatier, more interesting projects. If you're one of those, great. But if you're not, you've got to think about, you know, who's going to be leading your project, how you're going to do it, whilst you do business as usual and keep the lights on. So we had a couple of challenges just before the start of the webinar. So this is actually a video that we'll be able to play if you request a copy of the deck, and the webinar will be able to play it and see it. But this is Keith Round. Keith ran the transformation program for Vodafone Qatar. Vodafone Qatar were a divestment from Vodafone Group globally, decided not to go with the S4HANA rollout. We're using ECC and SuccessFactors from Group, and had to get off very quickly. We replaced both finance, supply chain, and HCM in less than 5 months with a go live. Now, it was a Me Too go live. but what it did was it put them on a platform where they've now started to exploit all of those technologies that I know every business is crying out for, so that it can execute its transformation in its own timescale. And this is another client of ours. This is Birmingham City Council, so a public sector organisation. They are bound by their rules to actually report in detail to the UK Cabinet Office, and they did this last year. This is from a 27-page report, which is again in the public domain. You can see the top line. I think that is predominantly their centre of excellence. That's really people. So that number's never going to go down. It's always going to increase, and they've looked at it. Second line, cloud-based ERP, is actually Oracle Cloud and Evosys implementation. So that's quite a lot of detail for you. If you look at the bottom right, I think that's the most interesting number. That's the hard sterling savings that they are estimating they will get from this replacement. £26.9 million. Our VP that runs the project said that there is significantly extra savings expected as they implement things like chatbots, RPA. You think it's a council, you know, you've literally got thousands, tens of thousands of people ringing, asking the same question day after day. You know, chatbots and RPA will be ideal for processes like that. They also highlighted in there their review process. And you can see on the left-hand side, they gave themselves 4 options. They looked in detail at 4 options. They're obligated to do that. They're a public body. And you can see that, you know, the challenges that they saw from standardise and simplifying what they have to migrate to cloud with SAP, and going for best in breed. They decided upon, as I say, Oracle Cloud. And you know, we're not advocating that you should just do that. We're advocating that you should consider it as an option. Here's just a snapshot of a couple of our clients. And what I've done is I've highlighted where they've come from. So you can see at the top, it's a replacement. So that's predominantly SAP ECC, but also SAP ECC with SuccessFactors that they've replaced. And it's really across the world that organizations have been doing it. If you look below by function, you can see that EPM is the same as BCP, so it's consolidation. You can see that there are other things like Oracle Advanced Procurement that organizations have decided to do. And then on the bottom right-hand corner, I've put in the magic quadrants from Gartner, just so that you can see why they're doing that, because Gartner consider Oracle Cloud to be best in class on these areas. And organizations are going for that meld. Initially starting with point solutions to maybe test, check, make sure that, you know, they're getting the right level of support from ourselves and Oracle, but also then moving across and seeing that life is a lot easier when you are consuming IT rather than managing and running it. So how can we help you? Well, this is an Oracle slide, but I thought it was very appropriate because on the left-hand side, you can see some of the key areas. One is that across this landscape, it's a single data model. Oracle bit the bullet about 10 years ago to rewrite. And they have done that very successfully. So you do only get one version of the truth. You do only input data once and use it many. But it allows you very quickly to use all of these technologies that you can see, digital assistants, machine learning, RPA, blockchain, across all of the function within your business, rather than just in a particular area. Oracle have always been very keen to actually get security down to a level, a granularity level, which is unusual. They talk about nosy neighbors on SaaS and on private cloud, and I can see that if you have somebody sat in the same data center as yourself and they have capability, are they able to look at what you've got? Well, not if the security is at right granular level. This is a checkbox for you, and what we've added are all the sources of these statements. So you can see that quite rightly, Oracle Cloud does absolutely everything, and it's green. But and then it's compared to SAP equivalents. There are 14 sources at the bottom, and I would invite you to have a look at these and check these yourselves, because they do stack up. We've learned over all the projects that we've done to actually move organizations from SAP ECC that we have to have a foot in both camps. We can't just say, this is what we need from you. This is what we're going to require from a data point of view. This is what we require from a process point of view. It's more a case of us having, as I say, a boot in both camps. So having built ABAP scripts, having understanding how the structure of ECC is, being able to then connect that directly and do data transposition rather than just data upload is very, very, very important for our customers. And it's the only way we've been able to do implementations for people like Vodafone in the 5 months. You can see here we have a significant amount of data and advisory services that go through. We're very hands-on. So, if there's a challenge for us, we'll do it. And we are known for our delivery capability globally. I know that ECC customers are often quite cynical about understanding. So I just wanted to give you just an idea and a snapshot of some attribute mapping. And you can see on the right-hand side that they are material descriptions. They are from SAP source records. They are source record names. And then what we're doing is we're actually doing a mapping of that to Oracle Cloud. This is the level of detail we have to get to make sure that we make any implementation a success. And then last but not least, value-based delivery. This is all about Evosys putting skin in the game. So it's about us committing to deliver on a KPI or a set of KPIs that you and we develop together. And it's not a one-off. Often this happens and then projects happen and these are forgotten. We look at this as an incremental lifetime goal. And if you look at our application managed service business, we are setting these goals to, for supporting organizations. The latest one we did was based on the reduction of tickets. And if you think about the implications of that, that goes all the way through to education, training, understanding, functional support. It's not just how many invoices have you done, what are you missing? It goes to a lot more detailed level, and it's very personal and specific to the business that we do it. We don't preempt it. What we do is we say, this is how we need to do things. This is how you want to do things. Right, let's organize the KPIs to represent those, and let's agree what we should be doing over time, whether we're increasing them or decreasing them. So on a closing note, I think we have the credentials. I spoke about those at the start of what we can do and why we can talk about this with you. My background is more SAP than it is Oracle. And hopefully you can see that I've tried to do it in SAP speak rather than Oracle, so that it's much easier to consume. But we have expertise. We're a large organization. We are the biggest dedicated organization around Oracle Cloud globally. We are recognized by Gartner as one of the leading SIs globally. So, we're very proud of that, but we've also done, significant number of these implementations. So, we've got experience at the coalface. And that's the presentation. My suggestion is if this is of interest to you, that you reach out and we can go through your specifics. We can look at what are you looking to do? How are you looking to achieve it? Do you want to go big bang? Do you want to go piecemeal or surround? How is it that you want to do it? Please feel free to reach out to me. My contact details are on the screen, and we'll take any questions that you have. Thank you. So if anyone has any questions, please feel free to send them through.
Sorry, Martin, apologies. It's Kelvin. I was chatting to myself there. Morning, everyone. It's Kelvin Worley from Evosys as well. Yeah, I've got a couple of questions that have come through, Martin. Is migrating to S/4HANA a cost-saving option that is moving only the technical layer to cloud? What are the long-term consequences? So I think there's about 3 questions in one there.
There are, yeah.
I don't know if you want to take them one by one.
Yeah, so moving to S/4HANA, so S/4HANA is fundamentally different to ECC. So you're going from a relational database to a columnar database. You've got to be very careful about things like that, because it's the technical move. People often talk about moving to HANA, and HANA is the underlying database, and you can do that, but I'm not sure you'll get what you expect. HANA is allegedly a lot faster, but it's a lot faster for applications that have been written for it. If you think about it, what you're really going to do is you're going to run ECC under emulation, and you will get what you expect. So that's the first question. What's the second one, Kelvin?
I suppose to a certain extent, the second one's to do with moving. Is it just a technical move to cloud? And to a certain extent, I'll probably, if I'm looking at that from an Oracle perspective, and obviously moving from S/4HANA or ECC to Oracle, obviously what we have seen at places like Birmingham and Vodafone is very much, it's a lot more than just a technology move. It's certainly improved business processes, etc., and everything around Oracle Cloud, and being able to do those quick, fast upgrades on a regular basis and benefit from that functionality. So that probably, and I was going to say that probably leads on to actually another question I've just lost here for a second, which is, how should an organisation prepare for transformation, including building that business case? And I know obviously you touched on the Birmingham City Council business case there, which is a very good starting point.
Yeah, I would. The challenge that we've seen is that that you need in these current times a very strong business case. I mean, it needs to be watertight. We are, the challenge for a client is, the technology swap that you just talked about previously. I don't think organizations are willing to do in the current climate, and I think that's because most businesses have suffered in some way. There's been some exceptions. I don't think Amazon feel like they've suffered at all, but many organizations have suffered and therefore are looking what they can trim. They'll maintain and keep what they see as critical business change and growth, and if you can present your business case that way, fantastic. But I do think that at the end of the day, the movement to S/4HANA is more about a technology change, and that SAP want to get all their clients off the old technology and onto the new, and is less about exploiting tech for business gain straight away. So people do end up doing transformation. That does end up extending their timeline and their time to a reduced cost or an increased capability. And I think what we're talking about is that, you know, Oracle Cloud has been doing that for the last 10 years plus. It's more mature in a lot of ways, and therefore delivers quicker, but it also means the consultants have got a lot of experience of how to do things, and more importantly, how not to do things. I think that's still being experienced now, and that experience is just not deep enough yet.
Lovely. Thanks, Martyn. I think we're just about on time. I don't know if anyone's got any other questions, if anyone wants to unmute themselves. If not, I'll hand back over to Martyn just to close off.
Yeah, if there are any other questions, you've got my email address and frighteningly my mobile number on the screen. Please feel free to ring me, contact me in any way you feel appropriate. If you would like the deck or you'd like the webinar, then please just drop me a line. We're happy to send it through for you. And yes, if you have any questions or you want to talk one-on-one, which I would suggest is probably a good start, then just drop myself or Kelvin a line, and we'll help you through that. And just for me to say thank you very much. I really appreciate your time, and have a great day.